Bobby en Hannah zijn hier te gast en ik ga met hen beiden praten over wat hen als echtpaar motiveert, hoe ze de kerk zien, wat ze zelf meemaken in hun gezin, wat hun dromen en idealen zijn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
and,
you.
How do you look back at the events in the Netherlands?
Well, one of the great things I loved about the tours was we got to go north, south, east, and west. So we effectively covered the whole country. And a lot of times when we've come, we've heard from our viewers that, hey, you forgot my part of the country was too far for me to get to wherever Leiden or wherever it was that we were going. So it was so nice to be, in Middelburg and Friesland and all these places, and to see the great reaction and to meet so many viewers in some of the places we haven't been before. It's really lovely.
Hannah, when people were waiting in line for over hours by times, just to shake hands with you both, what do they communicate with you? What do they say?
They're just very encouraging and loving, and it's actually such a blessing to see how they'd say how they came and they felt like they were blessed, and they bless us. And I feel like that's almost how the kingdom works, is that he uses us to give and receive from each other, and I love that. So.
It was really a great thing, is that it was just great to see people coming out, lots of smiles, lots of hugs, and we're huggers too, so that was really neat.
So how does it affect both your ministry in America to go to overseas and see with your own eyes what's happening in countries where the Hour of Power has been broadcast, because you've been in Germany as well?
Yeah, it strengthens my heart a lot, because I'm seeing that God is not just moving in the U.S. I get to see and feel His presence in other countries. And you see that God is not a God of one country, He is God of the world. And so it's really, really cool to see that.
We think of this as a global church. We think about that when we're looking into the camera, that we're looking through a window to the whole world. And we often remember our friends in Holland.
Talking about Holland, you're from Dutch descent. Your grandfather even could speak, you speak some Dutch, but your grandfather could speak Dutch quite well. When I communicated with him, he would, but you have some Dutch as well, don't you?
Yeah, we do, yeah. Well, that whole side of my family is Dutch. My grandma, Schuller, her maiden name is De Haan. And my grandpa, it's really...
That's where you get your height.
That's right, my height, yeah. A lot of people don't know this on TV. I'm 6'2", which is, what is that, 192 centimeters, I think?
192.
Yeah, so it's, it's interesting that when we come to Holland, though, we finally are around some tall people. We go to Hong Kong and we're standing, head and shoulders over everyone. So I have people coming up and they're my same height, and it's nice for a change,
What makes you happy?
What makes me happy is really the gospel, the knowledge that the Lord loves us just as we are, not as we should be, and the way that knowledge teaches me, and I think it teaches Hannah, that we can be ourselves when we're around others. We don't have to pretend. Even though we're pastors, we do our best to not try and be religious in the way that we act. I think we just try and be normal people that love the Lord.
Yeah. Because you're one of the youngest evangelists in America.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is it a big responsibility?
I think it is a big responsibility. I also think that TV is changing quite a bit. A lot of people are watching, Hour of Power, not on TV, but on their cell phones now. That's the world now, is people are sort of seeing the world through their cell phone.
Yeah. A thought that comes to my mind, because your grandfather was a genius, because his first services were on the roof of an open-air cinema, and people would sit in their car. How would he have used modern media if he would be still alive? He would have said, okay, let's go for it.
Well, one of the things that my grandpa was passionate about was helping other pastors. And one of the great things about today is, when you start television, when he started, it was very cheap. Then it got very expensive. It's still very, very expensive to do television. I think what he would do, and this is what I'm trying to do, is help young pastors that maybe have smaller churches learn to get their voices out through podcasts, and learn to film their church services with volunteers and get it out and see the kind of big effects they can have.
Yeah. So how will our world change in 10 years from now? Will it be still a televised service, or do we all have to carry an iPhone or an iPad or whatever?
Well, it's going to be both.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the internet is going to replace television, but I think what's actually going to happen is they're going to be married. And we're already seeing that. So people are still creating TV shows, but they're now, live streaming, or they're streaming on Netflix. So the methods and what people enjoy is going to change, but TV is going to be around for a long time.
Good. Well, I have a few questions for you. Take 3 minutes to share your life story. It's as many details as possible.
Well, I was born and raised in a big family. I guess it might not be big in Holland. There's very big families in Holland. I have 5 brothers. And I went to a very small high school, went to an art school for college. So we did not meet in college, but we met at a church. We went to the same church for 5 years. And we dated for a couple of years, got married, moved to California, started our very first small little, I guess it was more of a youth group at the time, and it kind of blossomed into a church, which eventually became the 3rd service of our current church. So that's kind of the evolution.
Are you the quiet force behind Bobby?
No, she's not the quiet force behind me. We do ministry together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's helping us plan worship. She's in the pulpit with me. I'm trying to get her to preach one of these days. And I think she's shared a message once with a women's group that was so powerful. So we really do lead together. She's behind me as much as I'm behind her. We do it together.
What is the secret?
You mean for our relationship?
Yes.
I feel like there's a real bonding that comes when you get a dream together. So when you dream together, you get to do strategy together, there's a real bonding. And I think it's very easy for to get involved in roles. The woman does all these woman things and the man does all these man things. But it's really amazing when you get to work as a team and just dream together. But yeah, I feel super privileged to do life with this guy.
Super privileged.
Yes.
It's interesting because when people, I grew up sort of in the shadow of the Crystal Cathedral, but growing up though, I really didn't go to the cathedral that much. I went to my dad's church, which was Rancho Capistrano. And my parents were divorced too, so when I was with my mom, we were at different churches in LA, or for a long time we didn't go to church. So I never felt a call, and I didn't really have much pressure on me to go into ministry or to do things with the cathedral. I actually went, my undergraduate, I went to business school, and when I finished business school, Hannah and I were married at the Crystal Cathedral by my dad, and my grandpa was there, and everybody was there. But it was funny because it was at our wedding, that we both started to sense a call. We were doing ministry as volunteers. We were working a lot with teenagers, and we were working with at-risk youth, and I led worship at a small gathering of teens at this thing called Thursday Night Teens. So we were doing things, but we didn't think about going into ministry at the cathedral at all. And it was there at our wedding that I felt very strongly, and she did too, that maybe God was calling us to do this, and that sort of was affirmed over time. But the reason that's important is I've always believed that the calling wasn't really for me, the calling was for us. And really my grandpa too, he loved Hannah. I mean, he was he was her biggest fan. And I remember even he would gather my cousins around, the boys, and he would say, "Now, I want you to be like Bobby." And I would go, "What is he doing? Why is he embarrassing me this way?" And he goes, "Bobby did it right." And I didn't know he was going to say this. He goes, "He married a girl like Hannah. That's what you need to do." And so for him, it was almost, as the founding pastor of the church, felt like he really affirmed that this was something we were doing together.
So
It's
cool.
10 o'clock at night. There was another busy day in Shepherd Grove. Children are asleep. You probably have a glass of wine. What do you share with one another?
Sometimes it's about the kids, sometimes it's about the ministry, sometimes it's about our own, what we're going through personally. I love that, I think we've been on a journey with each other of really trying to be 100% vulnerable with what is Hannah going through, what is Bobby going through, and trying to be there for each other so that we're healthy and in a good place and in a place that we can, be loving and give to others. And so yeah, it just depends on, it's always different. It's not always the same, so.
I love the world to be vulnerable to one another, because 40% of the marriages in the Netherlands, but also America, even in Christian circles, fail. After 7 years it gets itchy, and then so what is the secret? It's such a close bond. What makes it so strong? Is it God? Is it love? Is it
It is God in large part. I think having the same values is really important. So we don't really argue much about values, because we've always sort of agreed on that even before we were married. You know, what we want for our kids, what we want for each other. But I think a lot of it is just having fun together. We've always been really disciplined to always have a date night on Monday nights, and I'm surprised a lot of couples don't do that. They just sort of do it whenever they have time. I never answer the phone on Mondays. So I think some of those rhythms have been really helpful. And like she said, being vulnerable and learning that we're here to help bear each other's load. For a man, it's really hard for me to sometimes when I feel tired to go to Hannah and say, you know, this thing at work was exhausting, or this thing was really disappointing, or, you know, kind of felt, you know, isolated when this happened. But it's really healthy for me and helps us bond. And we just do a lot of fun things together, so.
To be a Christian means to live in a way wholesome. It's the way you eat, the way you behave, the way you rest. Don't hurry, don't worry. Which for me is very hard, because I'm always in a hurry and I worry a lot. But I've seen through the years, you never hurry and you don't worry. So what's the secret? Because most of the people are under stress.
Well, I think it's learning that hurrying erodes your life and erodes your soul. I don't mean to say that sounds really harsh, but I'm speaking as somebody who used to hurry a lot. And actually, there's been a good Claudia Hammond actually wrote a great work called Time Warped, and where she studied that the more you hurry, the faster your life goes. So the irony is that if you actually slow down, the passing of the days and years will actually mentally it will go slower for you, and you'll be able to enjoy more.
And I think we all struggle with it at times. There's just certain times in your life that you have some really stressful stuff.
Yeah, it's not something to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
It's a gift. If we can learn to slow down and catch ourselves, we're going to enjoy our food more, we're going to enjoy our friends more, we're going to enjoy our life more.
This interview is almost over, but we will have the second half in the beginning of September. When did you cry for the last time?
I don't cry all the time, but I cry a decent amount. I think just being a female, like I don't know if it's more emotional, but sometimes I'll even cry in quiet times actually a lot, because I just try to pray out a lot of the stuff that's going on in my soul and lift it up to God. So
one of the things I admire you both for, and talking about tears of joy, tears of pain, is your son, Cohen. Do you consider that a burden, a cross, or a joy?
Cohen as a person, as a son, is such a privilege and honor and joy to be his mommy, you know, to be his parents, and I'm just so grateful for him. And his he's so cuddly and huggy and kissy, and we just my little cuddle bug. So
but he's
he just
seven,
turned 7,
and he's behaving like a child of
two. But developmentally he's still a 2-year-old, which is the age he was when he had his first seizure. So there's been a lot of pain with that, and the slow development, and a lot of just trying to open my hands to God and say, God, I trust you with this. I'm trusting you in these times. But the pain often comes out of the love I have for him, because I just want him to have the fullest life possible, you know. But I also believe God wants that for me and our children. So I'm trying to trust the Lord that He has His desires, that we all have the fullest life possible. And so that is where there is a lot of pain in some of the journey we've been on with him, but also a joy to have him in our lives.
Yeah. How does it affect your ministry as a preacher to have suffering, you know, in your own family?
Well, yeah, I mean, it helps me understand, I think, in many ways what other families are going through. It helps me realize, one, the value of our power, because families that, you know, can't find a church that they love, that, you know, a lot of these families are able to have church at home. Yeah. And then the other thing is it helps me remember at Shepherd's Grove, like we've had a lot of conversations about ways to train our own church to be welcoming of children with special needs, and how to create spaces where parents who have kids with special needs can be there. So that's part of the blessing that we get, is we're empathetic with the burden that many families have of feeling isolated by the church.
Yeah. When you leave the Netherlands, what cannot be overseen? What do you have to take with you when you leave Holland?
Strobe waffles, yeah.
Strobe waffles, nice.
Of course, terrific. Very fancy.
Wonderful. In the traditional
it's great.
Blue and white, love it.
Well, thank you so much, and I wish you all the blessings, and thank you so much on behalf of all the Dutch people who enjoy the Hour of Power every Sunday. And we go to the best choir in the world, I always say, the Hour of Power, and enjoy a great song.